Well, Tom, Dr. Tom, how are you?
I'm awesome, Bill. Been a busy day, but I'm awesome as always.
Well, I love that. I love because anytime somebody says I'm awesome as always, that means that you understand that your attitude is a choice, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Good for you. Good for you. So I love your story, what I've heard of it. I'm sort of anxiously looking forward to it being revealed to me in real time, which should make this a great interview because I only know little bits and pieces, right? I know that
Right.
you were an orthopedic sports surgeon. I know that at some point you decided that you wanted to invest in real estate, and now that's a much bigger piece of your life.
Right.
Is that a reasonable thumbnail overview?
Yes, sir. Pretty good start. Pretty good
Yeah,
start.
man. So take us back. I mean, at some point, your mother, your parents, an uncle, somebody influenced you. Medical school came to your attention. You made a decision to go after orthopedics and work with athletes. And
Yep.
I don't know what the vision was in the beginning, but it sounds like at some point the reality felt a little different to you than maybe what you originally saw. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, things change. You kind of don't know what you don't know, and things come to you in life, and they might change your trajectory a little bit. And that
Yeah.
happened.
So how did that, I told you I had listened to another interview that you had done in February, and you were telling a story about you just being at the hospital, and whether it was you or friends that you were watching, it was like 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And it was like, man, I wasn't thinking this was going to be my life. Is that, I don't want to paraphrase it poorly. So what was that moment like when you started processing that, yeah, this was not what I really was hoping for?
All right. So, yeah. So I had, you go to college, medical school, and then a thing called residency. And in orthopedics, that's 5 years plus another year of sports training. So I was in the middle of my residency, maybe a little bit over the equator a little bit. And, we were indentured. When you're a resident, you're an indentured servant. You work all the time.
Oh yeah.
And so we're there all the time. But I just started noticing things about the doctors. We're being taught by other docs. Those
Yeah.
are our mentors. That's the people we're supposed to emulate. So that's me in 40 years, right? And I started noticing that these successful doctors were in the hospital at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. Now I had to be there, but they didn't have to be there. They had me to do all their work.
Wow.
And as you talk to these docs, I'd find they were on their second or third marriage. They were complaining quite a bit. And,
Yeah.
so this is what I'm looking forward to in the future. I'm thinking, geez, I finally decided that I didn't want their money if I had to have their life.
Wow.
They did pretty well, but I didn't want,
You
that's
got to
not
hang
what
on, man, because I just need to make sure that people heard that. I didn't want their money if I had to have their life.
yes, sir.
Wow. I did look, whether you're a physician or an attorney or you're in corporate America, my guess is there's an awful lot of people, Tom, that can relate to that phrase.
You bet. You bet. I just talked to somebody. I often talk to folks and kind of help them through things. And successful surgeon, was talking about being trapped. And you can probably find a lot of people in the country that use that word. They might be making money, a lot of it, a little bit of it, but they sometimes feel trapped.
You bet.
And it's not a fun thing to hear.
So now your mind is open to
Yep.
the reticular activator is fired up, right? And you're like,
Yep.
okay, so if I were gonna do something different, what might that be? So Walmart greeter probably wasn't on the list.
Nope.
How did real estate enter into the equation?
So I looked around at a few things. I thought I'd put on a suit and tie and be in administration. That was a dead end because I found out that I'm not employable. Stock market was too fast for me, and I didn't have any money to put into it anyway. And so
Yeah.
somehow I got to where I understood the numbers, and I had zero business classes, nothing
Yeah.
in med school, college, or anything like that. And I understood the numbers and went to some free seminars here and there, read some books. It was just it was the only thing that moved slow enough for me that I could do it while I was learning to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I could do it with partners or by myself. I could do it part-time or full-time. It fit the life of a busy person. And I
Right.
was a busy surgeon at the time.
Yeah.
So I did it probably by default because it was a thing. It looked like it made some money, and I wanted something that wasn't correlated with medicine.
Yeah, that's so good, man. That's so wise. And again, whether you're listening to this right now and you're a physician, or you're anywhere. I mean, quite honestly, that idea of feeling trapped, Tom. I think we're seeing more and more of this right now at the time that we're recording this, the beginning of 2022.
Yeah.
Last year, the great resignation, right, was a phrase that we had never heard before. And yet there are people that got used to staying home, being with their kids, having more flexibility, not commuting, not going to an office. They're looking for other ways to make things happen. So my hope is what's happening here is not just with doctors, but with anybody that might be listening to it, that they're encouraged. And obviously I want to take them to your book, and I want to kind of lead to what got to the point where you started writing a book. But just before we get into that, so now you've landed on something. This makes sense. Licensing is easy, barrier
Yeah.
to entry is relatively low. I'll have the flexibility, doesn't take a lot of money. So what was your first foray into real estate? How did that begin?
So yeah, well, I got out of all my training, dead broke when I got into. I'm in Austin, Texas, just absolutely dead broke with a pregnant wife and a young child. That story,
Wow.
but I didn't
Yeah.
suffer. I started getting paid as a employed doctor. I wasn't a partner or anything, and so I paid off a few small bills, very small student debt, but compared to what they have today.
Good.
And by then I had read a lot. I'd learned a lot because part of my training was in Vail, Colorado. I talked with a lot of really wealthy people that had done some things, and I was a sponge. I stayed in there and listened to them. I talked to Arthur Rock, and I talked to some really, really smart folks that taught me some good lessons. So, I'd kind of learned what I could from books and things. There weren't podcasts yet. So I just went and bought something. I believe the first thing was a student condominium at the University of Texas. Not a big fan of condos, but I bought a
That's
condo.
a great first move, though. That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had a tenant, had a nephew that was going to live there for a year or two. So I thought built-in tenant, and I knew nothing. I learned how to get the inspection, how to get the management, how to get the debt. None of that I knew. I learned it all as I did it. And I liked it. And at the end of the deal, every month there was extra money coming in, passive income.
Sweet.
I liked that, so I bought another one. I was a little faster at the second one. Then I bought another one. Then I got so good that I could see them in the paper. Back in my day, you could actually read stuff in a newspaper for real estate.
Wait, you a physical newspaper? Is that what you're saying?
For some of your
What?
listeners, it's like an iPhone you could touch. It's like Facebook that you can hold in your hands.
Yeah.
But I one night looked at an ad, and I knew that area like the back of my hand by then. And I told my wife, I'm buying this tomorrow. She said, how do you know? And I said, it's either covered with mold and rodents or somebody's made a mistake. And I actually slipped out the back door of my doctor's office, made an offer, bought it, and came back in. The patients never knew I left.
And that's hysterical. But this is why we're waiting so long. Is this why we're waiting so long in waiting rooms? Come on. Doctors out making offers on real estate. So which was it? Did they not know what they were doing, or was it mold and rodents?
It was a father who had bought the condo 4 years ago for his daughter to go to Texas.
Yep.
He got his buddy who was a downtown office broker to help him out. They didn't realize that prices had done that in the last 4 years.
Wow.
It was such a good price. I offered him full price, actually a little below full price just because. And,
Sure.
Signed it up on the spot, got appraised for way more than it was worth. And they actually wrote me a check at closing. So,
hello, this could now become a little addictive. Like you're already making money on the first one. You got your nephew in there. The second one, you come in really low. I'm assuming now you've got positive cash flow on that one as well.
Yep.
So you're looking good right now. Now you got money coming in passively every month, right?
Yep. And that's addicting. It's a good addiction. Doubt. So you want more. So I got a pretty fair sized portfolio of those. Then they got discovered a bit, but then as things happen, as you get in the market, as people start knowing that you'll close, that you'll execute, and that you find profitable deals, you find more deals and you find more partners. As you get partners and more deals, the deals get a little bit larger, and you just kind of learn as you go, and you just step your way up.
So cool. So cool. So at some point you decide, I want to help out my fellow docs because I see them out there and I know that they, look, in my world, primarily mortgage lending and real estate. That's where I've spent the last 30 years. Um, and I told you my son-in-law is a physician, so
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of an inside look of what that's like, and as you pointed out, maybe your student loan wasn't too bad, but I can tell you my son-in-law's was, a few years
Right.
later. Yeah, and the money's good, but the money's not amazing necessarily, right? Unless you start really
Right.
performing at the absolute highest levels. And like my buddy Josh Metal that I just introduced you to on the mortgage side,
Yeah.
that when I was coaching him years ago, he said to me in a coaching session, so much to his credit, I didn't ask him this, I'd love to take credit for it, but he said in a coaching session, I'm going to identify the type of loan that I really enjoy doing the most. I'm going to go back through my files and I'm going to look at it. And he landed on physician home loans. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, because the ones that I'm talking about, they're coming out of medical school. We've got a product for that, for their future earnings. They're
Yeah.
coming into, he's in Salt Lake City. At that time, that was the only place that he was doing this. Now he does it around the country. But he said, they come in, they have a limited amount of time. They've got big eyes, like, wow, that's the kind of real estate we could have. That'd be fantastic. So anyway, he created this specialization, but at some point you landed on this idea with the idea of, as you said, people come to you and look for advice and so forth. And it sounds like you decided to tell your story in a book to help initially doctors. Is that correct?
Not really. I mean, I wanted to
Okay.
help doctors for sure, but that's not how. So yeah, I was just kind of doing my thing, and it had, things had kind of built up, and I was running a private equity company and doing some other stuff. So things did grow over a 10, 20-year time frame. And a friend of mine's a guy named Robert Kiyosaki, and he wrote
Yes.
a big book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert and I have been friends for a long time. And sitting at lunch one day, I asked him what his next book was, and he told me, he turns to me and he says, "You should write a book." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you got a story. You should write a book." So, you know how 80% of us want to write a book and something like 3% of us do. And I thought,
You
I
bet.
could probably do that. So I did write
Well,
it.
but in fairness, you have Robert Kiyosaki encouraging you to write a book.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's
What
like,
does he know, right?
right? Yeah, exactly. How many
Yeah.
books has he written? I don't know, quite a few.
Yeah. So, I thought, all right. So we did that. And so Robert wrote the forward for me. But I wrote it. I didn't use really great leverage. I did it all by myself because I wanted it coming from here. I don't know if my
Good for
hands
you.
can show. I wanted it coming from the heart.
Good for you.
And so, and I knew it kind of could be for everybody, but I really did. I directed it at doctors, kind of for everybody. You could insert whatever you do for a living, insert it where it says doctor, and it's all the same stuff. It's like physics. The premises don't change. But it was, as I wrote it over a long period of time. It was a couple of years, just sequentially doing it and writing it a million times. And it was during that, as I interviewed docs and looked at things, that I realized how unhappy so many of them were. One time or another, every other doctor wanted to quit.
Yeah.
50%. Doesn't mean they always wanted to. And that made me sad because I loved what I did. I love my profession. I love the people in it. And so I wanted to make sure to give them some hope, some guidance, a little playbook to maybe follow to kind of help them out, because it's not rocket science. It's very simple to create some time freedom. It's not necessarily easy, but it is certainly simple if you just use some persistence and discipline and you kind of go at it with the right mindset.
Well, and there are so many fallacies in real estate, right? Like if you ask, I don't know, 10 people on the street what a down payment is on real estate, 9 of them are going to tell you 20%. And
Right.
it's just not true, right? There's bond programs. If you were a veteran, there's a whole nother play there. Like there's ways to put deals together that don't take much cash out of pocket, right?
Absolutely. If you got the deal, the money will find you.
You bet. You bet. So I want everybody who's listening right now to go to Amazon, and I want you to look at Why Doctors Don't Get Rich. The subtitle is How You Can Create Freedom with Passive Income Investing. And it's because you need to buy a copy for your doctor, right? I'm not kidding. And as we talked about at the top of the call, I really think that there are people that and it might be you, quite honestly, where you look at this and you say, you know what? I need to learn from this. And honestly, I'm going to order this book personally because I
Thank
want to
you.
learn from you, Tom. Absolutely, man. I mean, count me
Thank
in.
you. All right.
So yeah, I think everybody needs to either buy or read or sorry, either listen to or buy this book. Now, did you do the audio?
No, had too much going on, and I got a pro to read it.
Fair enough. Got a
Yep.
pro to read it. Fair enough. Well, I am looking forward to. I will tell you, I will listen to it first, but I'm going to order the physical book as well because here in the massive bookcases of Coach Bill, I have to own the book, right? Like the book has to live there.
All
But the
right.
easiest way for me to consume it is when I'm out exercising, and I'm going to look forward to listening to it very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
I hope it's
So,
got some good information for you.
oh, buddy, I know you already have, so I can't wait to jump into the book. So, if you had a group of your friends, just so that we can wrap this up here, but if you had a group of your friends right now, then you've probably done this, individually. But if you had 10 or 12 of them in a room, and they had gone down a path, a traditional path of getting a formal education, moving into some kind of a profession, and you could just give them a glimpse of this interesting path that you created, that you sort of whacked away the vines and the ropes with a machete to get yourself into it. I think you've now cleared a path for them. What would be your encouragement to those people in terms of just being open to this idea? Because this is not traditional thinking.
It's not, I would tell them we all have the same amount of time, and everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. But there's always time to learn something and always time to do something else. And now I started quite a few decades ago, but there's a lot of things out there that can help you learn, help you create income, and all that's designed to buy some time. So I just ask them, what would you do with a certain amount of time every day that you didn't have to do anything? People sometimes don't like to have that fantasy because they think they're too busy. But if
That's
you allow
right.
your mind to open up and realize that it's all possible, it really is. And that's what I would have them try to just envision what it'd be like to have some time to spend with their kids or do whatever they want.
I love that. And that I lied before when I said this last question, because you just opened up something I thought about earlier. And I wanted to ask you that question. Like,
Right.
one of the things that I tell clients in my coaching is I try and get them to cast a vision out into the future of what they want their life to look like and have them create a word picture of, well, describe to me, like, how many weeks of vacation are you taking? And do you have a date night every week with your spouse? And what do your weekends look like? And what fills your days? What are the hobbies? What are the bucket list items that you want to go take care of? You just mentioned to me that you've got a buddy that's going to run from the lowest place in the country to the highest, and you might join him at base camp. Like, a guy doesn't do that who's in a hospital at 10 o'clock at night. So what I want to know is, what does your life look like now, Tom? Now that you've made this, you took this different path, like really, you encourage people by describing to them, if to the degree that you're comfortable doing it, but what does your life look like now?
Well, you guys could have my life too if you created passive income. Probably when Bill and I are done, I'm going to take the trash out for my wife. But beyond that, last year I traveled. I went to Turkey and Kazakhstan and Necker Island and the British Virgin Islands, and I travel. That's my hot button. So
Nice.
if I showed you pictures of playing tennis with Richard Branson and going to Scottsdale to be with my other friends, so that to me that's the freedom and that's the lifestyle. I'm not you'll never see me flexing my biceps in front of a Lamborghini, number one and two, because I don't have biceps for a Lamborghini. But experience, put me on an airplane somewhere, and you can't do that if you've got to be seeing patients, seeing clients, running spreadsheets. So time is something else. It's a non-renewable resource, and it's wonderful when you buy some extra portions of it. And that's what I do with mine, is travel.
Yeah, well, it doesn't escape the casual viewer, if you're watching this interview right now, that in the background there's a map of Africa, the continent, the dark continent there, and then a bunch of tusks down below. So, this is a guy that isn't just hanging out in Austin and going to see Formula One once a year. Like, you're going other places and creating other experiences. And I love that you're doing it, man. Like at the end of the day, you know, a coach who's done this for 18,000 hours, I think we figured out recently. I
Wow.
cannot tell you how much I've learned about people who defer enjoyment and they defer retirement and they defer travel. And then, as you know, as a physician, in many cases, that's just not a reality. It doesn't happen later when, you know, you're at the age where now maybe you're free to do that. So to be able to do
Right.
it now and to steal your retirement now while you're relatively young is pretty cool, Tom. I love it. And I know that you've encouraged people today. So thank you for joining me and particularly putting off taking out the trash for your wife. I appreciate that.
My pleasure, Bill. Thank you.
My pleasure. Great talking to you, man.
All right.
Grab that
Take
book,
care.
you guys. Get a copy of this book.